All of which leaves us with the PMQs seen in the last Parliament. We reached the point where almost nothing was deemed beyond the personal responsibility of the Prime Minister of the day, where the party leaders were responsible for a third of all the questions asked, and often more like 50 to 60% of the total time consumed, all set against a background of noise which makes the Vuvuzela trumpets of the South African World Cup appear but distant whispers by comparison. If it is scrutiny at all, then it is scrutiny by screech, which is a very strange concept to my mind. The academic analysis does not make for enjoyable reading either. A survey by the Regulatory Policy Institute of all PMQs, posed in 2009, concluded that the Prime Minister had answered only 56% of all questions asked of him. Ladies and gentlemen, if it seems a tad harsh to cite Gordon Brown in this fashion, it should be observed that the same survey determined that only 56% of the questions asked of him were actually genuine questions in the first place. What the detailed exercise revealed, depressingly, was that PMQs had become a litany of attacks, soundbites, and planted questions from across the spectrum. It was emphatically not an act of scrutiny conducted in a civilised manner. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what the House of Commons has allowed to be placed in what I repeat is the shop window. What could be done about this? It is not for the Speaker to dictate in this field or to impose his suggestions on others. It is my duty, as my predecessors before me also felt, to point out to the House the reputational damage that our present arrangements are inflicting. It seems to me that 3 steps could be taken which might lead us to a more attractive outcome. The first surrounds the culture of Prime Minister's questions. No committee can legislate for this. It would require the Prime Minister and a new leader of the opposition, as so nearly happened in 1994, to agree on a common understanding of behaviour, one which offered teeth to our existing code of conduct, which states unequivocally that, and I quote, "Members shall at all times conduct themselves in a manner which will tend to maintain and strengthen the public's trust and confidence in the integrity of Parliament, and never undertake any action which would bring the House of Commons or its members generally into disrepute," unquote. A compact between the party leaders endorsed by the whips. In case any of them is here, perhaps I'll just repeat that. Endorsed by the whips would allow speakers present and future to enforce order far more vigorously, with the parliamentary equivalent of yellow and red cards available at their disposal if that were to prove absolutely necessary. The second element involves the character of PMQs, which has shifted too far away from backbench members. Once again, it would be wrong to impose or to seek to impose changes unilaterally. The very fact of a coalition administration has opened up a little more space for backbenchers, as the 2 questions previously reserved for the leader of the Liberal Democrats have been opened up to them. This is helpful in terms of the balance of PMQs, but it is hardly decisive. If the session is to remain 30 minutes long, the next leader of the opposition could usefully ask whether he or she truly needed as many as 6 questions of the Prime Minister in order to land a blow, or whether, in the spirit of Margaret Thatcher in the late 1970s, 3 or 4 would do instead. Arguably, however, a 45-minute or even a 60-minute session conducted with mutual respect would be a huge and welcome advance on the status quo. In such circumstances, the current number of questions allocated to the leader of the opposition would be more appropriate. Finally, there is the content of the encounter. Is it the right device for ensuring effective scrutiny? Does it need to be supplemented by other institutions? Are open questions posed in the vain attempt to catch a Prime Minister out actually the best means of inquiry? It has been 15 years since a procedure committee even addressed these issues, let alone had their findings accepted by colleagues. It seems to me, ladies and gentlemen, that the hour at which Mr. Blair's assurance of 1997 that the committee would be able to review the system must now have arrived. The ideal result for the House, in my view, would be more scrutiny, more civility, less noise, and less abuse masquerading as inquiry. I would like to thank this audience for its patience as well as for its upcoming hospitality. I have devoted a considerable amount of time to the subject of PMQs tonight precisely because it has been neglected for so long. I hope that I will at least manage to stimulate a debate about it. I will now apply that red card to myself and seek to answer your questions. Thank you very much indeed.